So let me stop right there. Now I've told you a little bit about Doyen, which still was a little bit of a success, but a sad story. And I've told you a little bit about SafeWire. Let me stop for questions here. Do anybody have questions about business sales, the AIM and ACT system? Yes?
What's your business model? How are you charging fees?
So that's a really great question. So for my business, for my market, I typically charge, I'd like to charge a reverse Lehman, but for some customers, I just charge a straight percentage. And it can be, depending on the customer, it could be 6%, it could be 8%, it could be 10%. I assess my company, my customers, my clients, before I even suggest getting into an engagement agreement, and I determine how difficult it's going to be. I've got a client right now that is based in Mexico, new client that we just have. Cole's going to be working his fingers to the bone on this one. Deloitte had the company for over a year on the market trying to sell it. They get one offer. And so these guys have come to me. I've told them about the AIM and ACT system. It's going to be a challenge. First of all the financial statements look funny because they're Mexican format. They're in Spanish, and we've got to convert them to U.S. We're going to be targeting U.S. customers. So, but anyhow, that's just an example of how I would adjust my fees for certain bigger challenges. But has anybody ever heard of a reverse Lehman? So typically in M&A, people will use a Lehman or a reverse Lehman. A reverse Lehman means, and there's a double reverse Lehman, but a reverse Lehman would mean you'd get 6% on the first million of value of the sale. And then you get 5% on the next million. So if it's a 2 million sale, you just get 6 and 5. But if, say, it's a 6 million, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1 is your percentage. Or a lot of times it bottoms out at 2. And a double reverse Lehman would be 6 on the first million, 6% on the second million, then 5% on the third, 5% on the fourth, and so forth. So there's different ways to do it. And as you go up the value chain, if I'm doing a $20 million deal, I'm not going to be able to say, hey, I want 6% or I want 8%. I'm going to have to do some Lehman type formula. Okay? Then you have to think about who's motivated. Am I motivated to just get a deal done because I'm happy with the 654 and I don't really care if I get the 3-2? You know, it's sort of, you have to decide, what's in the best interest of your client and what's the best interest of you when you do it. Does that answer your question? Probably more than you wanted to know. Yeah. So you asked about the model too, and the model is find clients, get agreements, market them using the AIM and ACT system, try to improve them, market them, help them all the way through through all the stages to get to a close and to get to a transition. And this is a great business, by the way. I mean, M&A, working on Wall Street, I did work on Wall Street for a short time between my first year and second year of business school. I worked there as an intern. And it was super exciting and super intense, and I really enjoyed it. But I decided I was more of a small business guy, and I ran small businesses for many years. I was looking for doing a lot of startups, and I was involved in those. And there is quite a bit of a difference from doing small cap business M&A from doing large business. When you're doing large business M&A, there's a lot of pitch books, and they're giant deals. $1 billion deal's a small deal these days. So not a small deal, but it's not a big deal. So any other questions? Yeah.
When developing a startup in the early stages, what would you say are some of the factors that you consider most to facilitate making that process?
Okay, great question. I'll just repeat it so everybody has heard it. When developing a startup, what parts of the AIM and ACT system are the most important? And I'm glad you brought that up because I did mention early on that this AIM and ACT system isn't something you should just think about at the end when you're ready to sell. It's really something you should think about. So, really every stage or most of the stages in the first part in AIM, first of all, you certainly want to assess what your goals are, what your partner's goals, if you have a partner, what your family goals, and realistically what it is. One of the things that's very, very important is to think about what your potential buyers are. So the M, market, what your potential buyers are. If you're smart enough to know what your potential buyers are and you can identify a few of them and go to them, you can actually get someone's attention and time and say, what would you need to see from a company like this before it was interesting enough for you to acquire it? And now you've got a roadmap because we usually guess. Most people start a business, hey, it's going to be great, we're going to make all this money. But then they find out there is no buyers. And one of the interesting facts that you might be surprised to hear about is that 60 to 70% of small businesses, now it's very weighted on the very small businesses, 60 to 70% of small businesses that are put on the market for sale aren't sold at all. The buyers, the sellers think they know enough, or they figure they'll figure it out as they go along, but they don't get one offer. And that's really shocking, because another interesting fact is that about 70 to 80% of most business owners' net worth is in their company. Anybody surprised by that? 70 to 80% of their net worth. They may own a house, they may have some stocks and bonds, but 70 to 80% of their net worth is in their company. So it's really scary, right? Like if you can't sell it. So when you're starting the business or in the middle of the business, you want to do those assessment goals, have realistic goals and so forth. You want to think about valuation too. And it's something that we preach a lot to our clients. Because everybody's tracking revenue and profit, right? And you guys just sort of are taught in school that it's a multiple of revenue or it's a multiple of earning. That's what the company's worth. Because we talk about it all the time, especially with public companies. That's a pretty good indicator for what a company's worth. But in a small business, it isn't always that. It's really about valuation. Valuation is what you sell. But if you're tracking revenue and earnings, you're not tracking value. So you want to track value too. And there's valuation models that you can use online. You can do DCF. But you want to look at what the value is. I had a client, a company that I used to work for, call me up and they wanted us to do a valuation. And so quickly, Cole did a valuation for them. And I just sort of passed on the financials. They didn't look at it. He said, you know what the valuation is? They had record sales, $5 million in sales last year, record profits. And I was thinking, oh God, finally my investment in this company might have payback. He goes, valuation, what was it? Minus 10 million. I was like, what? You know, you must have done it. No, they had 10 million of debt and no hope of paying it back and giant interest payments. And when I sent it to the guy, he was quiet on the phone. He's just like, that's what we're worth. But even with that situation, there's a chance to improve it. Get all your debt holders to convert to preferred equity. Now you've got equity. You've got a chance of raising maybe more equity. You don't have this huge interest burden and so forth. So to answer your question, I know I give long answers. I'm sorry for that. But almost every one of those steps. Clearly, you're not going to close, transition, but you can start thinking about your transition plan too. Does that answer it?